Pum, pam, pum. Hammaga salom do'stlar, sizlar bilan Sam's Games do'stlar. Bugun sizlar bilan biza Stanley Parable degan o'yin o'ynaymiz. Birozda qanaqa tarjima qilishim bilmayman buni. O'g'aynim judayam menga bu o'yinni maslahat berganda, o'ynab ko'rishimni. Deylar do'stlar, sizlar bilan birga boshlaymiz. Bundoq qoldirishim kerak-ku, lekin biz bundoq qo'yamiz. Sizlarga o'yin yaxshiroq ko'rinishi uchun. Hozirgi soat ko'rsatinglar debdi. Soat hozir 21:09 25 bizada. Yaxshi. Bizada soat PM. Dokuz 25 PM. Demak, специальный настройкаларni главный menyuda ko'rishlar mumkin debdi. Qanaqa настройкалар? Bilmayman. The Stanley Paradise Ultra Deluxe. Прикольно. Mana monitorimda ko'rinayotgan narsa bu yerda ham ko'rinyapti. Hop. The End.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Bu Stanley ismli odamni
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427.
Stanley 427 ishlardi.
Job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427
Uni ish
and
faqat
he pushed buttons on a key.
o'zini xonasida o'tirib
Orders came to him through a
427
monitor on his desk,
berishadi.
telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day.
427 raqamli сотрудник buni har yili qiladi. Har kuni, har yil
Considered it so
yil davomida qiladi.
Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was
Stanley baxtli edi. Stanleyga har
And then one
zavalginga
day, something very peculiar happened.
lekin
Something
oradan
that would
vaqt o'tib bir
forever
narsa
change
o'zgardi.
Stanley.
Bir
Something he
narsa
would never quite
bo'ldiki, bu
forget.
Stanleyning hayotini juda ham
He had
o'zgartirdi.
been at his desk for nearly an hour
was,
when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Xullas, nima bo'ldi? Stanley 427 сотрудник har kuni har xil instruksiyalar olgan, nima qilish kerak, qanaqa qilish kerak va hokazo va hokazo. Oradan vaqt o'tib, kunlardan bir kuni hech qanaqa instruksiya kelmay qo'ydi. Hech qanaqa prям hech kim xonasiga kirmadi, hech narsa qilmadi. Bunaqa narsa hech qachon bo'lmagan hisobiga Stanley nima bo'lishini tushunmay qoldi. Nima o'tganini tushunmadi. Hozir Stanley o'zini joyidan turdi debdi. Zidak turdi-yu. Hop, yurar ekanmiz. Tak, chiqdi.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Uni hamma
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Stanley ularni Stanleyning hamma kollegalari yo'qolib qoldi.
No
Qanaqa
matter
bo'lishi
how
mumkin?
hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of
Stanley
his
qancha darajada
co-workers.
qidirishidan qaramasdan hech kimni topolmadi. Tak. Hech kim yo'q. Tak, 418-xona. Flashback qarab ketamiz. Mushamini yomon ko'raman degan kurushka bor ekan. Tak, bu yoqqa qarab ketamiz.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ochuv eshigini ko'rib, Stanley chap eshigiga kirdi. Chap eshigiga kirmasa ham o'ngga kirsa-chi.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Переговорка boshqona deydi. Boshqa eshitganligini bilardi u, lekin aholi birinchi bo'lib turib, u komnata отдыха kirmoqchi edi. Tipa shablonga qarshi borganimiz uchun nam atmoska topdi.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring.
Ajoyib
It
xona.
had really been worth the detour after all. Just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
Stanley faqatgina shunaqa turib, mana shu turib chuqur nafas olardi. O'tirishni bilar ekanmiz.
Yes, really worth it being
Rostdan ham kirishga arzadi.
Room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
Rostdan hamma kollegalar yo'qolsa ham mana shu yerga kirib bir boladan ko'rib o'tirsam.
But at last he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left to get back to business.
Hozir endi biz mana bu yo'ldan kirishimiz kerak ekan. Bu yo'ldan kirsak nima qilar ekan?
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Stanley instruksiyaga shuncha darajada yomon qarardi, yomon amal qilyaptiki, anaqa shu vaqtgacha instruksiya bajaradigan odam ishdan bo'shqa topishmadi. Debdi. Don't jump from the cargo.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here.
Yo, xulosa oldi Stanley.
Really, I'm not.
Ham paxodni men tushunmayapsan. Men seni dushmaning emasman.
Someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her.
Ishdan chiqmay bu yerda hamma
This is it,
narsa
Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself, to put your work aside, to let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
kimdir bizdan kutayotgan ekan. Xullas, hamma narsani o'z boshimchalik qilib turib qabul qilaverma. Boshlig'i ham gapiga kir debdi. U seni kutyapti. Kim kutyapti bizdan hali berib bilmaymiz. Ana deganing qaraganda kimdir qiz bola. Oh,
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this.
Stanley.
To reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the
agar
phone.
rostdan bir-biringga ishonsang, telefonni ko'tar debdi. Ishonmasamchi. Oh! Ko'zim. Tay, 427-xona.
Oh, Stanley, is that you?
Stanley, bu senmisan?
Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just
Tuttur
pouring
hozir
butter in the
jonim.
oven. All right.
Duxovkadan pirog otdim. Mana ujikyoman, ochaman.
And tell me all about your
Kir, samay qanaqa ko'rganini aytib berasan.
Gotcha. Oh, come on.
Sen
Did you
tutolma.
actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
Sen rostdan ishondingmi? Seni rostdan xotining bor deb o'ylaganman.
but you're in my story now.
Kechirasan, lekin sen meni istoriyamdasan. Kirmasang nima bo'layotganini aytib beraman.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
Bu juda ham g'amgin hikoya. Xayrli tong, 427-raqamli ano ishchi. Saturnning ishchi bo'ladi, to'g'rimi? Ye harfini bosing, siz o'zingiz klaviaturingizda debdi.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that
Stanley
demands nothing of
judayam
him, and every button
skучный
that he
bola.
pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential
И
nature
har
of
bitta
his
bosilgan
existence.
knopka uni hayotiga mazmun beradi.
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do.
Qaranglar, knopkani
Now
bosib
he's
turayapti.
pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now
Rost aytganini
he's going
qotmadan hozir
home.
ovqatlanyapti, mana uyiga
Now
ketdi.
he's coming back to work.
Yana
One
ishga
might even feel
qaytyapti.
sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
Boshqa knopkalarni bossa hech narsa o'zgarmaydimi? Bosmasa yana nima bo'ladi ekan? Bosmasa nima bo'ladi? Qanday kutamiz? Necha sekund kutishimiz mumkin bilmayman hali beri. 1, 2, 3. Oltmuş, 61, 62. Va xuddi hech narsa o'zgarmaydi. Rani
But in
bosamiz.
his mind, in his mind he can go on
Lekin uni
fantastic
orzularida
From
juda ham
behind his
ko'p narsalar
desk,
bor edi.
Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown. Fantastic
Stol oldida o'tirib,
discoveries
juda ham
of
ko'p
new
narsalarni
lands.
orzu qilardi.
It was
Juda ham ko'p
wonderful.
joylarga
And
borishni
each day
istardi.
that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen.
Har
to
kun
him.
ishga kelgan holda bular hech narsasiz bo'lmasligini bilardi.
And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he
Shuning uchun
imagined that
u
one day
o'zini
while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly.
tushiga, короче, hozir endi u o'zini ishi haqida orzu qilish boshladi. Orzusida hamma ishchilar ishdan yo'qolib qolgan, do'stlariga qo'shilgan holda. Debdi. B harfini bosing, bolalar bilan o'ynash uchun.
So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through
Keyin
either.
u dalsha
At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
hamma odamlar yo'qolib qolgandan keyin qiziqib ko'chaga chiqdi. O'sha yo'lga ketayotgan payti ikkita eshik chiqdi. Boya biz tanlagan ikkita eshik. Qaysi eshikni tanlashdan farqi yo'q edi, lekin u o'zi qaror qabul qila oldim deb o'ylab, o'zidan faxrlandi. Padaringga padarka. Ustimdan kulyapti ekan bu. N harfini bosing, o'zini tayyorlash uchun.
As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable.
Hammasini Stanley Parable deb topdi.
It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time.
Bu narsalar davom ettirdi. Narsa tugashni xohlamasdi, chunki albatta birorta bir narsa oxirida yo'lning oxirida nimadir bor, to'g'rimi debdi. U harfini bosing, xotiningizga qanchalik yaxshi ko'rishingizni aytishingiz uchun debdi. Mana bu yerda holding bor, holding o'zgarib qoldi. Mana bu yerda bam paydo bo'lib qoldi.
But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has.
Lekin
Nothing
hech
has
narsa o'zgarmadi.
changed.
Nimaga
The
bilasan,
longer
chunki
he
hech narsa
spends here, the
qilinmadi.
more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one.
Chunki u qancha darajada ishga joylashgan sari
And I'm
real
trying
hayot
to
qanaqaligini
tell you
bilmaymiz. Esdan
that
chiqib
in
ketadi.
this world he can never be anything but an observer. That as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Aslida u nima qilayotganini bilmaydi. Misol uchun oddiy misol mana. Hozir keyingi safar knopka chiqqan paytda u bu hayotdan chiqib ketishga harakat ham qilmayapti. Mana oddiy misol. Hozir keyingi safar instruksiya chiqqan paytda u instruksiyani bosma dedi. Hozir biz bosadigan bo'lsak bizga yetadi, tipa Men bo'lmasa hozir aytdim, shu narsani qilmasang, hayoting yaxshilanib ketadi deb aytgandim deb aytadi. Agar hozir bu knopkani bosmasak, meni fikrimcha, mana qancha darajada to'poy, nima o'zini fikri yo'q. Shuni olib ustimizdan qotadi deb o'ylayapman. Fani bosdi.
You see?
Ha,
Can he just
ko'rding?
not hear
U ishni sen
How
eshitmayapti.
can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here,
Qanaqa
he's
manga
electing to kill himself?
bu yerda har bitta
How can I
o'tgan
get him to see
sekunding
what
seni
I see?
o'ldirayotganini
How
tushuntirish
can I make
mumkin,
him look at
gapimni eshitmasa.
himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't
Mana
make
hech
the
qanaqa
rules.
qilmasa
I
iloji
simply
yo'q.
play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled
Men unga
to.
tushuntirishga
I
harakat
must.
qilaman. Men majburman bu narsaga
Perhaps,
debdi.
well, maybe this time he'll see.
O'ylayman ko'cha farq tushunadi.
Maybe this time.
Balkim.
And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
Tak. Xuddi o'shanaqa boshlanish bo'lyapti.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Hamma
What could it be?
kollegalar yo'qolib qoldi.
Stanley decided
No,
to go
bo'lishi
to the
mumkin
meeting
bu.
room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Stanley переговорkaga bordi. Nima bo'layotganini ko'rish uchun, balkim nimanidir esdan chiqarib qo'ygandir deb. Tak. Bu sefer
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he
ikkita
entered the
eshik
door on his
ochuv
left.
eshigini ko'rib, Stanley chapiga kirdi. Bunisiga. Hop, mana ko'ramiz. Nima o'zgarar ekan bu sefer?
Yet there was not a single
Lekin bu
person
yerda
here
hech kim yo'q
either.
edi.
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Keyin u boss xonasiga chiqishga harakat qildi, keyingi etajdagi.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
U nachalnik xonasiga bordi dedi. Nachalnik xonasi bu yerda bo'lsa kerak.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human
Nachalnik
life.
xonasiga kirib,
Shocked,
rostdan hamma yo'qolib
unraveled,
qolganini
Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark
shuni bildi.
secret was
Kim
being
buni,
held
kim
from
bilan
him?
unaqa
What he
qilgan
could
bo'lishi
not have
mumkin? Kim bilan
known
o'g'irlab
was that the
ketgan bo'lishi mumkin?
keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Mana bu yerda hamma informatsiya bo'lishi mumkin. U bu narsani kodi 2845,
Stanley
lekin
just sat
albatta
around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was
lekin uni kodi
2845.
2845 ligini Stanley bilmasdi. Qayerdan ham bilishi mumkin? Hozir Stanley faqat shu xonada turibdi, har xil knopkalarni bosyapti.
2845.
2845. Mani fikrimcha shu kod borligini bilsa kerak u. 2845. Meni eslatib bizga kodni. To'g'ri deb o'ylashyapti. Zatabdan bosyapmiz-ku.
Forgot, but it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself. And Stanley got the hell along with the storm.
Avariyni ana ishlab
he did.
ketib, eshik o'z-o'zidan avtomatik ochildi. Bizga atrofda eshik 2845 bosmaganimiz uchun bu. Yaxshi. Tak. Hop.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit
Narsaga
peculiar.
tushirishda Stanley
It was
o'zini
a
juda ham g'alati
stirring of
qildi.
emotion in his
Qarshi boshladi.
chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him?
Hozir
This
endi
question
ishi
would
haqida
not
o'ylashga
go
boshladi.
unanswered for
Nega
long.
aynan hozir, nega shuncha yillar davomida hech narsa bo'lmasdan, именно hozir o'ylashga boshladi. Tak.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Böyle chiqish. Escape deb tarjima qilinadi. Bu yerda mind control tipa miyani boshqaruvchi facility nima bo'lishi bilmayman. O'sha javob oldi. To'g'ri tekshirib ko'ramiz nima ekan, xo'p.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Nima narsa bu yerda ekanini tekshirib ko'rish uchun kelganmiz. Bizning duximiz yetarmikan buni nimaligini bilish uchun deb keldi.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Har bitta ekranda buni kollegasi haqida, kollegasini ish joyi informatsiyasi bo'lgan. Bu ozodlik degan o'ylagan narsasi aslida ozodlik emasligini tushunib yetdi.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
O'zini ishi bilan mamnun bo'lmagandi, balki bu narsani boshqa odamlar boshqarishgan.
No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control. Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Nihoyat mana u hamma chuvstvalarni topdi. Jahl chiqishi, xafa bo'lish, ovqatlanish, uxlash, hamma narsasi va bu narsa yomonligini va bu narsalar orqali dunyo boshqarilmasligi, bu narsaga qat'iy tarzda nuqta qo'yish kerakligini tanlagan holda Stanley bularni to'xtatishga qaror qildi. Qanaqa faqat bu knopkani ham bos olmasganman. Hop. Bir. 2. Tak, mayli. 1, 2 shu yerda bo'lsa. 5 mana bo'ldi. 3 to'g'ri qattani ham bilmayman. O tepada nimadir bor ekan. Tepaga chiqar ekanmiz. Tepaga bundoq bu yerdan chiqa olmas ekanmiz. Tak. Bu fonaryum. Tak, tepaga qarab chiqish bo'lmadi hozircha, to'g'rimi? Xuddi bu yoqqa qarab boramiz. Pastga tushsa bo'larkan, keyin qarab turib nimagadir. 5 bor bu yerda bo'lsa.
A And when at last he found the source of the room's power,
Mana
he knew
nihoyat
it was his
hammasini
duty,
topgan
his
payti
obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood
bularni
for.
hammasi to'xtatish kerakligini tushunib yetdi. Hammasini o'chirdik.
Blackness and a rising chill of
Qorong'ulik.
uncertainty. Was it over?
Hammasi tugadimi?
Yes.
Ha,
He had won. He
yutdi.
had defeated the machine.
Va nihoyat u mashinani
Unshackled
yutdi
himself from someone
va
else's
boshqa
command.
odamlarni
Freedom was mere moments away.
qarollaridan qutuldi
And yet, even as the immense door slowly
va
opened,
g'oz
Stanley
teshigi
reflected
sekin
on
asta
how
sekin
many
ochilar
puzzles
ekan.
still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone?
Stanley
How
o'ylashga
many
boshladi.
been freed from
Hamma
the machine's
tayyorga ketdi.
grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Stanley baxtli bo'ldi. Tipa
All of his co-workers were
hamma
gone. What could it mean?
yo'qolib qoldi. O'sha
Stanley
o'sha
decided
gap.
to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Tak. Tak.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his
Tak.
left.
Namasam o'raylik hammasini. Yani qanday boshqa konseptga olar ekanmiz,
Yet there
yurmay
was not a
chiqamiz
single
bo'ldi.
person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office.
That's
Coming to a
kind of
staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. But
No.
Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that.
boss
And in
oldiga
such a
bormadi chunki
competitive
qo'rqdi.
economy, why had he taken that
Ne,
risk?
ish vaqti
All
bilan
because
aylanib
he
yurganini
believed
so'rab,
everyone
ishdan bo'shatishlaridan qo'rqib,
his boss would think he was crazy.
jinni qoldi o'ylab
And
ishdan
then something
bo'shatishlari
occurred
mumkin.
to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job. Pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Do'stlar, o'ylaymanki, judayam bu narsani men hozirda bu narsani tarjima qila olishinglarga, hamma gap tushunganinglarga judayam xo'rdayman shu narsani. Ya'ni bu tushungan bo'lsanglar agar, menga judayam o'yin o'qotdi. Mani fikrimcha bu o'yinni men o'zim o'ynasam kerak deb o'ylayman. Bilmayman rosti. Xafa bo'lmanglar do'stlar, lekin afsuski men O'zbekistondagi ko'pchilik odamlarni rus tili yoki angliyskisi yaxshiligiga ishonmayman. Balki men noto'g'ri o'ylayotgandirman. Agar noto'g'ri o'ylayotgan bo'lsam, juda ham xursandman, chunki bilmayman, meni yoshligimdan qolib ketgan narsa deymizmi bu. Mani ko'p do'stlarim именно man ularga asoslangan holda aytaman. Butun dunyoga men javob beraman, butun O'zbekistonga men javob berolmayman. Именно mani yaqinlarim, mani do'stlarimga asoslangan holda aytaman. Misol uchun aytaylik, mani 100 ta tanishim bor bo'ladigan bo'lsa, yoki bo'lmasam endi 100 ta tanishim bor bo'ladigan bo'lsa, 100 tadan menimcha 10 tasimi rus tilini yaxshi biladi deya olmayman hamda даже biladi. Просто biladi. Gap tushunishi mumkin, так далее, так далее. Lekin bu yomon emas. Men umuman men bu narsani yerga urish boshqa narsa deya olmayman. Просто bilmadim. Bu o'yin juda ham menga yoqadi. Endi misol uchun qancha darajada odam litsemerniy bo'lishi, qancha darajada o'zingizni hayotingizni boshqara olmasligingiz, o'zingizni hayotingizni qanaqaligini tan olmasligingiz va shunga o'xshagan narsalar juda ham yaxshi ko'tarilgan bo'ldi. Menga shunaqa bezumniy nima podachalar menga juda ham yoqadi. Agar sizlar bu o'yin sizlarga yoqqan bo'lsa, agar bu o'yinni davomini ko'rmoqchi bo'lsanglar, o'ynamoqchi bo'lsanglar birgalikda, albatta kommentariyaga yozib qoldiringlar. Bu o'yinni mani fikrimcha hamma narsani o'tib ko'raman. Nima so'radi? Konsovkalarini. Если o'yin yoqqan bo'lsa, like bosinglar, podpiska qilinglar, kommentariyaga yozib qoldiringlar. Hammaga e'tibor uchun kattakon rahmat do'stlar, sog' bo'linglar.